People ask me all the time, how has your background as an athlete contributed to your PT career? And to be honest, there's a lot of layers to that answer, but I think the biggest piece would be that athlete mindset. I play this game when I treat any single one of my patients where I'm like, if I were to play against you in your sport or activity or whatever it is, how would I beat you? How would I exploit your deficits and make you uncomfortable in order to win? Because at the end of the day, when you go back to sport, especially at an elite level, that's what your opponent is going to want to do. Not to hurt you, but to win out of respect for you as a competitor and out of respect for the game. So they may not understand why it is you don't want to go left, but they'll notice that you're not good at it or that you don't want to do it, and they're going to make you do it over and over and over again and pick you apart in order to break you in order to win. So in order to go back into that environment, you have to be physically and mentally prepared to handle those scenarios. And my job as a PT throughout rehab is to change my hat into the coach's hat, and to try and put you in positions all the way along that journey that make you uncomfortable so that you realize what your own boundaries are. You know, whether that's strength or balance or confidence issue or whatever it may be, if you realize you're not ready, that's better than me telling you you're not ready. Because at the end of the day, the only person that can clear that athlete is that athlete. You know, they're going to know in themselves whether they're ready or not. And sometimes, even if they know they're not ready, they're going to go back anyways because of a million different reasons, you know, and your job is to best prepare them for those situations, but to support them even if that's their decision, and hope that you've prepared them well enough for it to work out. And if it doesn't, you have to be willing to welcome them back and not say, I told you so, but okay, like next play, let's start over, let's keep going. You know, and before you do get them to that point and you clear them, you put them back in that scenario that made them the most uncomfortable. But when they're ready, and so that they feel it in their body and they know it to themselves that I am ready. And that's kind of my process that I use. So I can't use an actual patient example for that because that would be unethical. So I guess I'll use an example from my own history. Because when I'm injured, I have to do the same thing. You know, I have to put myself in that athlete's shoes and flip my brain and say, okay, how would I beat me? And those of you in my world know that my biggest Achilles heel has been head trauma. And the details of that story are not something I wish to share at this time, but it's been my biggest battle since I was a teenager. And I think being that athlete that went back too soon over and over again, I kind of had to learn what my boundaries were, and that's actually helped me with my process as a therapist. So after this most recent head injury, I was hit on the right side of my head, which controls the left side of your body. So initially, my left side of my face, my arm were numb and just spatially disoriented, in addition to being dizzy and nauseous and having sleep issues and all the other things that go along with it. And I have a PT for me, but she's a neurospecialist, and I saw her and I asked her to reassess my system because objectively I needed someone to tell me like what my impairments were. So sure enough, my visual field was impaired on that left side. So basically I've got vision that doesn't work and a body that doesn't work on that left side. And my medical history includes a tumor on that left arm, so my sensation on that left side is already not very good. So knowing those things, I have to build a practice plan to like get back to that thing. So my first practice back, I went to my coach and I told him like, look, these are my deficits. Like, I need you to challenge me to my left. And, you know, I told him, okay, like in serve receive, like I need you to serve me outside my body to that left side and mix up the serve, like serve me that short flat one that dives in front of me, the one that hits me in the chest, and the one where I have to track over my head. And he did. And, you know, I kind of was feeling out what my boundaries were, what I could do, what I couldn't. And I kind of knew in that moment, like, okay, I'm not ready to play defense because I can't track the ball at that high level. If I'm diving for those balls, like I'm not ready for that. So I held off on defense for the day, but I did integrated drills with other girls, and these other girls were 2 girls who were my friends, but they are better than me. And that's like who you want to surround yourself with, is people that are better than you, who elevate you. So they were great. Honestly, I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. My body did well. And I walked away from that experience with them, and my coach and I decided to stay longer, just one-on-one. And together we came up with more drills, like, to help me with that. So the other piece of that issue is like the cognitive issue. And I mean, my short-term memory is bad, my focus was bad. So, together we created this sequence of drills where, one arm to my left, like pass short, pass on me, pass deep, and then go hit a ball that he would toss either inside, outside, off, or on, where I had to adjust and calibrate using my vision. And then he would give me a color, because all our shot locations correspond to cones that are different colors. If he said yellow, I went yellow. If he said blue, I went blue. Red, I went red. And then I would go back and I would serve short, deep to challenge my depth perception and my motor. And that was our practice. And I left that practice encouraged, but also understanding like, okay, this is where I need to go next. So I wrote out a practice plan for my next practice, when I am ready for defense. And I'm like, again, okay, if I was playing against myself, how would I beat myself? Mentally and physically, how would I beat myself? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go 4-1 to that left side. So first ball, I'll come in hard and I will hit hard and flat and deep at the left side of my face, because that ball is both physically the hardest for me to deal with my impairments, but also mentally the toughest for me to deal with because it's the scariest. And that one ball has one of 3 outcomes. Like, best case scenario, I dig that ball and I feel in my body and I know that I am prepared to compete and that I am ready. And it frees me up to compete and to play well. Worst case scenario, I get hit again. Game over, back to square one. But that third case scenario is where like the strategy comes in and the puzzle happens. And say I deflect the ball so it doesn't hit me in the face, but I don't dig it. And in that moment, I realize like, shit, I'm not ready to be here. But I've already stepped on the court and I'm an athlete and I am going to play. So I get back, next ball 2. If I was playing against myself, I would hit flat and sharp to my left sideline. That first ball got me on my heels and pushed me back, so I'm less ready to move forward. Another fast ball is hard for me to track. And again, they score on me and I'm like, shit, okay. I'm dug in and I'm a little nervous and I'm a little scared, but I'm gonna keep playing. So then that third ball, I would come in and I would hit, last second I would cut that ball. So now I'm like, okay, I'm on my heels, I'm too dug in, I'm not ready to move. Okay, they scored on that ball. So then that next ball, I'm a little less dug in, I'm a little ready to move, but I'm still uncomfortable. So that next ball, I would show hard hit and then I would jumbo up and over on my left shoulder. Because that ball challenges me to track that ball over my left shoulder, which is difficult, turn around, which makes me dizzy, play it with my left hand, which is less coordinated, turn back around, which makes me more dizzy, and then transition out of arguably the hardest position to transition out of, in order to score. So chances are I don't score on that ball. So then I'm back again and I'm getting frustrated and defeated, but I'm not ready to quit yet. So then if I was playing against myself, I would go back again and I would show that first ball, that hard, heavy, fast ball to my face. And I would hold it as long as possible. And then at the very end, I would easy short shot to my right. And that ball is game over. That ball, you're so defeated because you played percentages. You played for that left side of the court. You played for their best ball. And because you were so in your head and so dug in and so scared, you are not ready for that easiest ball on your good side. So next practice, those are the things I need to work on. Those are the things I need to get ready for. And I'm not gonna clear myself until I am ready to defend that first ball. And when I can defend that first ball, I'll know I'm ready to be back out there. And until then, I gotta keep practicing, I gotta keep drilling, I gotta kind of, be in whatever version of that is to like work towards that end goal. And, I guess a lot of people in my life, they don't actually know that I learned how to play beach volleyball very late in life and when I was already in a very chronically concussed state. So to be honest, all my body knows is how to move and how to function in that alternative state. I've worked time and time again to rehab and to get better, and I've gotten better and I've made a lot of progress, but at the end of the day, I feel in my body that like beach volleyball is always going to be a foreign language to me. Like basketball was my native language, if you will. I played from super young, and I had this sense in my body and in my reflexes and my vision of what I could be and what it felt like to be in my best element. And that's, to be honest, why like I kept chasing it. I kept coming back too early because I wanted that back. And time again, for whatever reason it was, like some of it was my fault, some of it wasn't, but I just kept getting knocked back down, and kind of had to accept that like finally I had to walk away. And it's how I found volleyball, because it was another outlet, something else for me to do, but it was different, similar but different. And to this day, like I can't touch a basketball without it making me sad, for all of what it could be, but mostly because of what I feel in my body when I touch that ball. Like I remember what it felt like to be in rhythm. Like basketball is like dancing, it's rhythmic, it's music, but with the ball. And visually, spatially, like sensory wise, like my body can't do that anymore, and so I don't play because it makes me sad. And the first time I touched a ball in years was the day that Kobe died. And I remember that day because I was leaving beach volleyball practice, actually, and I had my ball bag in my hand and I had my phone in my hand, and the notifications started going off, and at first, like everybody, I thought it was fake. I was like, this can't be real. Like, this is Kobe. Like, this can't be real. Like, Kobe is invincible. Like, Kobe is everything my whole life I have worked towards. He's this ideal of excellence and work ethic, and that if you work your ass off, you will get there. Like, that was Kobe. And when I realized that, like, it was true, like my world, like, didn't make sense. So I went home and I turned my phone off, and I grabbed my basketball and I grabbed my Kobe jersey, and I went to the park by myself, and I spent the entire rest of the day until sunset shooting baskets in my Kobe jersey in silence, because it was the only thing in that moment that like made sense to me. I was like, I have to pay my respects to this person, but not just this person, to this like ideology that like I've looked up to my whole life, and to this day, every January 26th, like that's what I do, because it's the only thing that makes sense to me. But when I'm doing that, I still feel in my body that like it doesn't work the same, and so for so many reasons, basketball, like I got close, like I ended up walking on at a D1 level, but a short period of time, and it just never became what I hoped it would be. Like, it gave me so much, but it also took a lot away too, and I can't play anymore, but that framework of basketball and that like mindset of Kobe is like still everything I try and emulate, and like unfortunately I've had to accept that like my dream was to play in an elite level, but I'm decent at volleyball, and given my background and my size and all these other factors, like I'm doing okay, but I'm not elite, and I work with elite athletes, and I know I'm in my body that I'm not elite, And so I've had to accept that what I am elite at is helping other people like live my dream. You know, my other people succeed at that elite level. And like, on one hand, that hurts me to my core. But on the other hand, like, I found such a lightness and a joy and a purpose in that, you know? And so in my office, I have this Kobe picture, you know, and it's this series photo of all the different versions of Kobe in different years and different jerseys and different shoes. And I look at it at work and I am reminded that like, okay, this is my new arena. You know, if I were the Kobe in my field, what would I do? You know, like, how would I approach my new craft the same way I used to approach basketball? You know, and my coach, my favorite coach, basketball coach growing up, he would meet me at the gym at 6 a.m. before school, junior high, high school. I was always at the gym, and he had me doing ball handling drills and shooting drills, eyes closed, eyes open, 1 ball, 2 ball, you know, and he always had this saying like, it's game day, like, check your baggage at the door, it's game day. And so that mindset is kind of what I do in my life, and especially when I get to work. Like, sometimes I'm having a really bad day in myself, but I show up and I have to check it at the door. And even if in the moment part of it's fake, when I start to talk to that person and I start to solve those puzzles, like, I'm happy again. And I find this purpose and these, you know, this joy out of helping other people do it, you know. And I guess it's funny because in high school I wore 2 jersey numbers, one for club, one for high school. And in club I wore the number 0 because jerseys went by sizes and I was the smallest player on every team ever, you know. But in high school I wore number 24, but I wore number 24 back when Kobe was still number 8. And I got that jersey because it was the summer before my freshman year of high school, and I was one of 2 freshmen asked to practice with the varsity team, and I was given this old hand-me-down jersey that was number 24. Nobody wanted it. It wasn't MJ's number. It was a random-ass number. Nobody wanted it. And it was too big for me. You know, every time I ran down the court, I'd fall through the neck hole. So I had to tie it in this funny little way just so it would stay on when I played. But I played all summer in that jersey, and at the end of the season, at summer, I was like, this is my number. Like, I'm number 24. You know, it's a random ass number, but it's my number. I'm number 24. And then my junior year of high school was when Kobe switched his number from 8 to 24. And I had this joke, you know, that, Kobe wants to be like me, you know, and I was not vain enough to actually believe that. But as a high school kid, like, it gave me a little extra confidence and a little extra swag that, like, Kobe wants to be like me. You know, and so needless to say, like, he's just been this ideal for me. And, you know, he wrote in his poem, Dear Basketball, like, I never saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I always pictured me running out of it. And I think a lot about that phrase because as much as I wanted to be the athlete running out of that tunnel, like, my body hasn't allowed me to do that in the ways that I always hoped I would. Like, I still play beach volleyball and I do well, but I'm not elite and I can feel I don't move like I used to. So I have to focus on the light at the end of the tunnel because I can't be the one running through it. You know, and that light has become for me my work and my patience. And like, my patience, you guys give me so much joy and so much value. And in some way, it's kind of better than I pictured it could be, you know? And my one patient in particular, my best friend, who was my patient long before I was licensed. Like, I was in graduate school, he had no resources. He would come over and bring me this burrito from our favorite restaurant. And he would trade me food, and I would practice what I was doing and pretend like I knew what I was doing when I didn't. And together we like figured it out, you know, and step by step, like, we both got better in our respective arenas. And 2024, like, he made the Olympics, he made the Paris Olympics, and this Cinderella story fashion, and like, you know, not the kid that was given everything, but the kid that like succeeded anyways. And like, that's what like Kobe was for me, and that mindset was for me. And here was this like real life example that I got to play a part of, that was that, you know. And unfortunately I was not able to be there in person because I was dealing with my own head injury history that put me in a really dark place. And I worked as hard as I could to be ready to go. And at the end of the day, I wasn't ready, you know? And I had a gut check moment when I realized I wasn't ready. And it killed me to miss that. Like, of all the things that my head injury history has made me miss, like, hands down, that is top of the list, you know, top of the list. But that makes me sad when I think about it. But he went on to do it anyways, and he succeeded, and he's doing it, the thing that like I always wanted to do, like he's doing, you know. And I get to watch him, and I get to help him, and I get to be there for it, you know. And that's pretty cool. And you know, my dad used to always have this saying, like, next play, Lise, next play. What would Kobe do next play? You know. And so whenever I start dwelling on that moment, I have to think to myself, okay, next play, you know. And I have this picture, you know, another Kobe picture in my room, but it's facing my bed. And it's not the one of him in the Mamba pose posterizing people. It's the one of him biting his jersey in his grittiest moments. And I look at that picture first thing when I wake up in the morning, when I am maybe having a really bad day. Because there's a lot of things that I have to do behind the scenes, especially physically, to show up in the ways in which I do in my world. And some days that is really hard to do. But I wake up and I look at that picture and I see it, and I'm like, okay, I gotta grind in the dark so I can shine in the light. That's what Kobe did. You grind in the dark so you shine in the light. You know. And I don't know, a year ago maybe, I keep the hat, my friend's hat. It has his name on it. I hang it on that Kobe picture. And because he's my real life example of, you know, what that means in the context of my world, you know, and of people in this world. I want him to be successful because of how much he's helped me as my friend and just as a good person in my life, you know. So I look up every morning and I see Kobe's picture with his hat. And I'm like, all right, Lise, like, you can do it today. Like, light at the end of the tunnel, you can do it, you know. And then I hear my dad's voice and he says, Lise, next play, you know. And then I think to myself, like, okay, 2028, the Olympics are in LA, Kobe's city. The Olympics are in Kobe's city in 2028. Like, next play, like, let's do it again, buddy. Like, back to back, like Kobe, let's do it again. And maybe that sounds silly, and maybe it's a fairy tale, I don't know, and maybe we'll fall short, but we have to try, you know. And I think that's what I'm learning through life, is that you have to try, you know. And sometimes you do everything right and something bad happens anyways. Like, that was my last head injury for me. I worked so hard to mitigate risk and moderate anything in my life that exposed me to weakness. I changed my daily routine. I changed the way I did everything and skipped certain things that I wanted to do because I thought it was too risky. And at the end of the day, the most random, unfortunate thing happened anyways. You know, and I think to myself, like, that's what was so hard about the way that Kobe died. Was here's this person who represented this greatness and this ideal to the world that transcended sport. And he retired and he wrote a book and he invested in his daughters and in women's basketball. And he had this purpose to him outside of being an athlete that was elevating people and lifting people. And he broke himself for basketball over and over and over again. And he put himself back together over and over and over again. And he walked out on top with a Kobe fashion of a 62 or 3-point game, I can't remember. And you walked away just believing this man is invincible. And then he died on this helicopter with his daughter in the most random, tragic fashion ever. He takes that route all the time, I think. I don't know, but like, that's what broke me about the way he died and the fact that he died. And, you know, I'm not a religious person, so I don't attribute it to that. You know, I just look at it like, fuck, like, this is a reminder to everybody that, like, you just need to show up. You know, win or lose, like, you need to do the work and you need to show up and you can't quit. And at the end of the day, if it's the last thing you do, you need the way that you carried yourself and the people that you helped to be your legacy. You know, and so that's what I think about all the time. And I hope that one day, like, I can leave people that way, you know. Probably not in as grand of a fashion as Kobe, but even if it's just to my patients or the immediate people in my life, like, that's what I want to try and do, you know? So I guess if you play against me in volleyball, serve me to my left, challenge me to my left, make me be better on my left, you know? And if you call me on January 26th, I will not answer the phone. You know, if you're looking for me, you can find me at the park. I will be in my Kobe jersey shooting baskets on the one day a year that I do that. Because somehow that ritual still makes things make sense for me. You know? So I guess that's all I have to say for now, but I appreciate you listening, and thank you to my patients for being the light at the end of my tunnel. I love you guys, and I'll see you on Monday.